Okay, this is actually segment 2. And all I'm going to say about the whole thing that happened today in Minneapolis is watch segment 1. It's just going to be titled Just Watch. Okay? And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to trigger anything from Substack and have it taken down or anything like that. I'm not suspecting that, but in the past I have put some interesting things up in the past, and they've never taken it down, but they did refuse to do previews. And I want to be able to cut previews as well. So just watch it. That's what the title is going to be. And I will just say this. My thoughts and prayers obviously go out to the victims. I think it's horrific. I think it's terrible. But I also think that it is way past time that the American Medical Association designates this crazy, weird, gender, whatever the hell you want to call it, as an actual mental issue. And then we don't need flags, we don't need clothing, we don't need special bathrooms, we don't need special treatments. You know what we need? We need these people to have extensive psychiatric help, number one. And number two, they need to be hospitalized. They need to go to institutions where they will be given antipsychotic drugs, possibly for the rest of their lives, who knows, and never to be seen from again. And yes, even someone very close to me, and you all know what I'm talking about, I would also advocate for that because he's mentally ill as well. That's all I'm going to say. Now, let's move on. So we all know now that the COVID shots have been yanked, okay? And RFK Jr. is doing a phenomenal job as Health and Human Services Secretary. He is getting rid of the poisons in our food. He's getting rid of the poisons in our water supply. He's getting rid of the dyes. He's trying to get rid of using the high fructose corn syrup and going back to natural cane sugar. The red number 40, the blue number this, the yellow number that, the seed oils, right? All of that stuff. And he's doing a phenomenal job. But he can't get anything passed at the federal level, mainly because of Senate Democrats that are so basically just beholden to big sugar, big pharma, big medical, big agra, whatever you want to call it. They're getting so much money from it that they refuse to allow it to pass in the Senate. So, what is RFK Jr. doing? Well, he's doing something a little bit different. He's going around them and he's going to the states. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But first, we have now banned the COVID vaccines, the COVID mandates, the unauthorizations, as I like to call them, right? The authorization acts that have now been all rescinded. Well, because we are finally getting away from all that garbage, some people at the Center for Disease Control, because they don't want prevention, they want you to remain sick so they can make money on you, right? Well, some of those folks, including the CDC director, said, I'm out of here. Well, all I can say is good riddance, number one. Wait till you see the thumbnail, number two. As soon as I saw her big, dumb, stupid liberal glasses, I knew that she was trouble, okay? And that's why she is no longer there anymore. But it gets even better, okay? It gets even better because not only did she leave, but apparently a couple of her cohorts left as well. Well, all I can say to these idiots is don't let the door hit you in your ass on the way out as well. So, first, the emergency youth authorization has been rescinded after years of tyranny, mandates, lies, all of that stuff. The Food and Drug Administration has officially rescinded the emergency use authorization for the COVID-19 vaccines, the authorizations that were used to justify the mandates, the lockdowns, the masking, just all the coercion that we saw during the Autopan years. The announcement came Wednesday as the FDA simultaneously approved updated COVID boosters while ending the blanket emergency status that big pharma and government bureaucrats clung on to for years. Well, I'm not really happy about approving any type of COVID boosters, especially with the advanced cancers, the myocarditis, the pericarditis, the strokes, the heart attacks, the blood clots. I mean, you name it. Anything you can imagine is a result of these vaccines. So then it says that the FDA has now granted standard marketing authorization, not emergency approval, for limited populations on some of these drugs. RFK Jr. fulfilling a major campaign promise of President Donald Trump's administration, which was to get rid of the COVID mandates, the COVID shots, and all that, but not 100% because they just approved some COVID shots. I guess the good news is they're not being mandated anymore. So after this happened, of course, this Karen with giant glasses. Look, the giant glasses is a giveaway to a liberal woman. Period. End of story. Okay? Maybe with the exception of Kennedy on Gutfeld. Okay? For the most part, if you see those big, giant, stupid glasses, it's a liberal woman. Plain and simple. Am I casting or stereotyping? Absolutely I am, and I don't have a problem with it. So, 3 CDC officials resigned after Dr. Monarez ousted a CD director. And of course, the reason was because we got rid of the mandates, we got rid of the lockdowns, we got rid of the masking, we got rid of the emergency use authorization. She was only at the CDC for less than a month, and finally, she's out. So RFK Jr. basically went to Trump and said, hey, get rid of her. She's terrible. Or he said, go ahead and do it and get rid of her, and that's what happened. But of course, she will not go lightly, and she is now refusing to leave. And guess who she has lawyered up with? Anybody remember the name Mark Zaid from a few years back? Well, let me give you a little history lesson on this scumbag. Number 1, he's likely a pedophile. That's right, I said that publicly. Number 2, he has defended pedophiles in law cases before. Number 3, he has a propensity for little girls, and especially Disney girls, because he likes watching them. You can look at his YouTube channel, the sick bastard. And he was also the lawyer, apparently, he claims anyway. I don't know, I didn't see his lawyer card. But he said that he was one of the persons that was defending Eric Ciaramella. Anybody remember that name? Remember you couldn't say Eric Ciaramella under the Autopen administration because he was a whistleblower? Well, apparently that scumbag had this guy as his lawyer. And oh, by the way, Mark Zaid is also besties with Tony Eisen. Remember him? Norm Eisen. You remember him? He's the one that basically put the whole thing together in helping to steal the 2020 election. You remember the big Time magazine article? The secret plan to save democracy and all this other bullshit? Well, guess who his right-hand man was? Mark Zaid. And the now CDC fired director who refuses to leave has hired this dirtbag lawyer to represent her. Oh, how wonderful. So apparently she's refusing to leave. And here are some of the other morons that are, I guess, standing in solidarity with Big Glasses Karen. Following the departure of Dr. Monarez, 3 senior CDC officials have resigned, per The Hill and PBS. Dimitri Daskalakis. Now, this guy is a sick, demented weirdo, okay? Look at the thumbnail closely, all right? There's a picture of this guy that I found. He's, I don't know, he looks like he's going to some type of San Francisco Pride parade or some weird shit with a collar and a weird hat on. no shirt. He's just a sicko. So that's who was working underneath her at the CDC. So if you don't think in this Trump administration there are still plenty of subversives, sadly, there are plenty of them. Now, granted, this time around, we're finding them and we're getting rid of them. But yeah, they're there. They are there for sure. So Dmitry Dasalykakis, or whatever you want to call him, director of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, Daniel Jernigan, or Jerkmeoff, director of the National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases, and CDC Chief Medical Officer Deb Horry. Her name, not a joke, Houry, but you could spell it the other way too. So let's see. Daska likes a lot of dick, a radical leftist who rose to prominence during the monkeypox outbreak. Oh, gee, I guess I'm right with that nickname, am I not? Wrote in an email obtained by The Hill, I am not able to serve in this role any longer because of the ongoing weaponization of public health. The weaponization of public health. Wow. What balls. Well, I would assume, right? Maybe he's changed. Who knows? Assuming he has them. That's pretty ballsy because you are the ones that have weaponized health since 2020. You're the ones that created the mRNA garbage. You're the ones that put these jabs in people's arms and coerce them to kill themselves. But yet you're saying that the weaponization is now happening because why? Because we're getting rid of your mandates? Because we're getting rid of your lockdowns and your emergency authorization bullshit? I don't think so. So anyway, that's what that putt said. And boy, you're going to love the picture of this guy in this weird leather hat and, I don't know, like straps. Just a sick bastard. So let's see, at least, and then it says, the resignations came the same day that Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced a slew of changes to limit access to the COVID-19 vaccine. Just hours after the news broke, the CDC director, Susan Menarez, was ousted from the agency. Let's see. NBC News reported that Dr. Jen Layden, director of the Office of Public Health Data, Surveillance, and Technology, has also resigned. Menarez's lawyer, Mark Zaid, said Menarez has neither resigned nor will she be fired. Well, again, she was and she is. So now she's been lawyered up, just like Lisa Cook got lawyered up, right? So all these auto pen people think that they're above the law. They think that they can stay in their jobs because they can hire some left-wing douchebag lawyer to defend them. I don't think so, okay? They're all going to be gone. Trust me on that. Now, for this segment, let's end with something positive. Wouldn't that be nice? As I said in the beginning, RFK Jr. is trying to get the federal government, so in this case, the Senate and the House, but mostly the Senate is the problem, to pass his Make America Healthy Again agenda. But he can't get there because of Senate Democrats, okay? Not Republicans, Senate Democrats. Why? Well, pretty simple. Because of this. Because of a lot of this. So he has said, okay, fine. I'll go around you. And I'll go to the states. And I'll start with Texas. Why? Well, because Texas will listen. And guess what? Maha is big time now in Texas. So Kennedy joins Abbott for signing ceremony. Texas became the latest state to enact a host of health benefit measures driven by the Trump administration's Make America Healthy Again agenda, with new laws taking aim at additives and sugary foods. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy praised the legislation on Wednesday and has joined Greg Abbott at the signing ceremony for a trio of Maha-inspired bills. So let's see. Here is what they can now look forward to. Let me see. Where is it? Oops, it's right there. Okay. So what they're saying is right here. Texas is doing its part to make Texas healthy again by the laws that I'm signing today. One of the measures will implement sweeping fitness and nutrition education requirements in public schools, in addition to requiring a stark warning on food labels that contain any of 44 additives the state has identified as harmful. The warnings will apply to food manufacturers using additives such as bleached flour, partially hydrogenated oils, and many common food dyes. Now, it does say starting in 2027, so I wish it was sooner, but whatever. Starting in 2027, they will need to include a prominent label on all products that read, "Warning. This product contains an ingredient that is not recommended for human consumption by the appropriate authorities in Australia, Canada, the European Union, and the United States and United Kingdom." The state Senate unanimously passed, this is the Texas State Senate, passed the labeling bill, which received overwhelming bipartisan support in the House. Another of the bills signed into law prohibits recipients of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, right? And their benefits program for food stamps from using food stamps for sweetened beverages, so sodas and things like that are now banned, and no candy, no Kit Kats, no Rolos, no Nerds, no Starburst, nothing, none of that stuff. And that also has passed as well with bipartisan support. Quote, "Taxpayer dollars should not be used to fund chronic health problems in our state," said Abbott. The third bill requires school districts to eliminate certain additives from free and reduced price school lunches. Kennedy's proposals have just had more success at the state level than in Washington, where legislation would require support from Senate Democrats who refuse to even vote on the legislation. He has argued that states can help accomplish Maha's goals by pressuring food manufacturers to change their nationwide practices. "I told President Trump that we are going to end the chronic disease epidemic, and I'm serious about it. We can't do it, though, from Washington," Kennedy said on Wednesday. "The food companies are coming around to us," he said. 40% of food manufacturers have agreed to remove 9 synthetic petroleum-based dyes from their food. Why did they do that? Well, they didn't do it because they are scared of me. They did it because they are scared of what's happening here in Texas today, he said. But Texas is still notably behind in many critical public health metrics, particularly health insurance, and it is the highest state in the union for uninsured Americans. Kennedy is hoping that Texas can do more to advance his policy goals, specifically on ivermectin. "Oh, don't take that horse paste. Oh, how dare you." Right. No, take this jab into your neck or wherever it's going to go instead and be dead in a couple of months. Its most common use is in livestock, but, of course, Kennedy has promoted it for potential alternative use to treating the coronavirus and other things as well. He wants to make it clear that he wants to see ivermectin be able to be purchased over the counter. Now, a bill to do exactly that just passed the Texas House this morning as well. "I think it's a really good bill," said Kennedy, "and I think Americans should have the choice to use it." So, what has happened with Maha? A lot. Getting rid of the sugars, getting rid of the dyes, changing welfare, no more candy, no more soda, no more seed oils, getting away from high fructose corn syrup. Hopefully very soon, at least in Texas, you'll be able to buy ivermectin over the counter, and then hopefully more red states will follow as well. So God bless Texas for leading on making Texans, at least at this point, healthy again. Now, let's do the last segment. This really bothers me. It's really just sick. I hate when people are taken advantage of. It's just a terrible thing. So, the smallest country population by density in the entire world is Greenland. Greenland has roughly about 56,000 people. Now, granted, most of it's under ice, right? 75-80% of it. It's beautiful countryside that's not under the ice. Nuuk, I think, is the capital. I can't pronounce it. I think it's Nuuk or Nuuk, something, N-U-U-K. We have a Space Force air base there. And of course, underneath all that ice, there's a lot of natural minerals, materials, things like that. It is a strategic location that we must have so that China does not get it, because having China run Greenland so close to the United States, it would be a launching pad for who knows what, okay? So President Trump has said and has warned at some point that, hey, if you don't step up and let us do a security agreement with you, we may take it by force. We remember that, right? He was talking about that within 4 or 5 days of being inaugurated for this term. So the question now remains, why is their population so low? They've been around a long, long time, right? They have a native Inuit community, which are kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I guess they're just native, like, in a way, almost like nomads or Alaskans in a way, but obviously not in Alaska. And they're the indigenous people to Greenland. And their population should be a hell of a lot larger. But for some strange reason, it's not. Why is this country, as large as it is, why do they not have a large population? Well, here's your reason why. You ready for this? This will make your blood boil. It did for me. Denmark's experiment on Inuit children, a painful legacy of forced assimilation and, yes, sterilization. That's right, you heard that correctly. For decades, they have been sterilizing the women in Greenland to keep the population low. That's right. And Denmark has admitted it. And even some leaders in Greenland has admitted that they have gone and targeted the Inuit population as well. Listen to this crazy story. In Denmark and Greenland, the legacy of colonialism continues to fracture the Inuit communities, most visibly through the treatment of indigenous children. Despite former apologies, so again, they've admitted this. This is not something that they're denying. They have admitted it. Despite formal apologies and recent policy shifts, deep-rooted biases still drive unequal treatment and lasting psychological harm. The struggles for justice and cultural survival remain far from over. Denmark's relationship with Greenland is rooted in a long history of colonial control, cultural dominance, and attempts at forced assimilation and sterilization. Although formal colonial rule ended in 1953, Denmark continued to exert significant influence and power over Greenland's political and social structures. Policies driven by economic interests and paternalistic ideologies continue to shape Greenlandic society through the mid-20th century, and their impact persists to this day. Danish governance prioritized Danish language, Danish values, and institutions while marginalizing the Inuit traditions. One egregious manifestation was the removal of Inuit children from their families under the guise of offering a, quote, better life, most infamously in the 1951 Little Danes experiments. These actions reflected a colonial mindset that devalued indigenous identity and prioritized cultural assimilation, laying the groundwork for later state-sponsored assimilation policies that inflicted long-term harm on Greenlandic communities. Now, we're going to get into this a little bit more, but understand that Denmark has a security agreement with Greenland and protects them for many, 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 many years, okay? But they've also taken advantage of them. They've also forced them to assimilate. They have marginalized their indigenous people, and they have even sterilized their women to keep the indigenous population low. Want to know why there's 55,000 people in the country? Well, guess what? We're going to find out soon enough. The 1951 Little Danes experiment. In 1951, the Danish government conducted a controversial social experiment in which 22 Inuit children were removed from their families in Greenland. The goal was to assimilate them into Danish culture, cut off their ties to their indigenous heritage in an effort to reshape their identities and prepare them for roles in a Danish-dominated society. At the time, Greenland was a Danish colony grappling with widespread poverty and high mortality rates. These children, ages 5 through 9, were placed with Danish foster families, where they were prohibited from speaking their native Greenlandic tongue and were systematically taught to adopt Danish language, customs, and values only. The intent was to mold them into a generation that would serve as a bridge to Denmark's continued dominance over Greenland's political and social structures. Many of the children never fully were reunited with their families and suffered long-term mental trauma. Helena Thiessen, a Greenlandic educator and author, who was just 7 years old when she was taken from her widowed mother in 1951, later became one of the most vocal survivors of this experiment. She spent 7 years in an orphanage in Nuuk, again the capital, after being sent to Denmark and losing her native language. Recalling her return to Greenland, she said, quote, "I cried all the way to the orphanage. I was so looking forward to seeing my town, but I could not see anything through my tears." Thiessen also learned decades later that she had been part of a state-sponsored social experiment, a revelation that profoundly affected her sense of self and motivated her to reclaim her Greenlandic heritage. Stripped of their language, culture, and family connections, survivors like Christine Heinesen later came forward accusing Danish states of violating their human rights. While the 1951 Little Danes experiment remains the most infamous episode, it was part of a broader and ongoing pattern of cultural assimilation and systemic discrimination. Danish authorities have historically targeted Inuit families through policies that disconnected them from their roots. A recent highly publicized case illustrates the persistence of the colonial mindset. And then it talks about another child that was taken. And then here it is right here. One of the worst things that they have done, here it is. This is a long article. I don't want to read the whole thing, but here it is. Where is it? One of the worst things that they have done to the Greenlandic people, and in particular, the Inuit community of indigenous Greenlanders, was to sterilize their women. Women from the ages of 15 to 28 were routinely and forcefully sterilized so that they would not continue to have more children, to grow the population of the Inuit community. Here's my thought on this. Greenland should be running to the arms of President Trump after being treated like this for all these years. Think about it. How big could have this population been? I mean, if it's 55,000, and they've been doing this for decades, sterilizing the women between 15 and 28 years old, so that the Inuit indigenous community would not grow. I'm not saying that there would have been millions and millions of people in Greenland, because that's not the case, because 75-80% of it is covered underneath ice. Nuuk is the biggest city. But I am saying that, I don't know, they probably could have been a minimum of 250,000 to maybe as many as 500,000 people. They're 55,000 people. Think of how many people could have been born to their numbers for the Inuit people and the people of Greenland. You want to talk about human rights abuses? I mean, this is like Nazi stuff, experimenting on these people forcing them to assimilate to the Danes, forcing them to not use their Greenlandic language, and then sterilizing their women? Why isn't this all over the news? Granted, there was a little thing on the news and I saw it and I read it. And remember, they apologized to Greenland. So they've admitted that they've done this. President Trump ought to use that alone to tell the Greenland, hey, we're not going to sterilize you. We're not going to keep you from assimilating of who you are and your people. We want you to be proud. We want you to be independent. We want you to be your own country. All we're asking for is a security agreement here so that we can keep the Chi-Coms away from you and us. That's all. Well, now we're finding out the Trump administration has been doing some covert operations inside Greenland. In other words, basically telling the politicians and things like that, hey, this is what's happening. You already know it's happening because the Danes have already apologized for it and said that they're sorry. Anyone ever held accountable? No, of course not. It's not like Greenland has the strength to go up against Denmark. So again, I think the Trump administration can use this scandal in particular to make sure that every single Inuit and indigenous person, which they probably already know, I would imagine it's the number one thing that they're pissed off about. But if they don't, they ought to know it. And you know what? They ought to run to the arms of President Trump, because President Trump in America will actually protect them from the evil bastards in Denmark. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.